At 7:05 p.m. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, state, under God, one, indivisible.
Introduction and roll call. All right. Superintendent Spotlight. Do we have that tonight? Do we have any citizen input tonight? All right. We are going to move on the agenda. We have item F, which is a construction update. We're going to move that up first. Mr. Martin, is that okay with you?
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you so much. Those of you that have monitors that you can see, have the presentation on that in your board book. I included behind the first page the dollars in the program and the scheduling and the projects. We'll run through that quickly here. This is our first phase of work that's being done. You can see on the right-hand side on the comments, we have our TCO for both Walker and Strike. Moving on down through the list, the high school ball fields and tennis, we're in subcom there, as well as the film. We haven't put the film on the middle schools yet, but that'll be our next thing to do to get that line item finished. Also, HVAC at the high school, they continue to work on that. They're in controls issues now. It's getting better, but it's not done. High school ball field and concession concourse. We walked the concessions building today and through the concourse, and we're setting up a time to go with Hellas to finish up the items on the rest of the ball fields as well as the bleachers. The next phase we went through the district ESPC phase 2, which was the entire district. That one's still in construction. We also have the stadium renovations, which is the track. They started putting the red finished surface on over the weekend. We're expecting to have that complete here by the end of this month. In the red box is a proposed Oak Point Hunters Ridge land purchase. We've included that in here so we can see how it affects the bottom line on the last page. December 20, phase 3, this is the expected next bond sale, which, as you can see, would fund the multipurpose and the conversion of LMS to admin, plus 6 more additional buses. The rest of the phased work, as you see, into each bond sale stretching from May of 21 to May of 22. On the last page, then, you can see the difference here. We wind up with accrued interest of a little over $5.5 million, which has helped pay for some of the land purchases. We still have a reimbursement resolution reserve of $5 million, and we wind up at the end of the program with a positive balance. Again, this is before return to project savings. We're expecting to see $2 to $3 million out of the 2 middle school projects come back into the program.
Total or per location?
Total.
Okay.
Moving on, there's your temporary C of O for Walker. And these are just some progress pictures the week after. The stage now that you can see the white plywood floor, it now has the dark Space Knife finish on it. The wood, and you'll see another slide here in a minute, the wood around the front of the stage has been completed. The gym floor, which in this picture was not finished, it is completed. The city will come in and do their inspection in that space for us on Wednesday, so we can start to actively use it. The floor has been finished, and we're just waiting for it to cure out. Classrooms are in session. Again, here's the wood at the front of the stage. That box, square box, that's where our time capsule goes. And so when they're ready to start to frame that in, we'll take that over. There's a nice plaque that goes over the top of that. Athletic fields, they're out there using them today. Concessions building, the main things we were waiting for there was roll-up doors, both at the counters and at the storage room. Those came in last week, so they're in the process this week of getting those installed. I mean, fixtures and all that that's already in there and working. And these are scheduled. Stage areas and gym turnover expected by the end of this month. Substantial completion is expected in mid-October, with final completion by the end of October. So I think before Thanksgiving, we should be ready, set, go. Here's our temporary certificate for from the colony for strike. Their landscaping is a little ahead of Walker. This is current conditions in the atrium. You can see there on the left, the learning stair, we still have it blocked off. They should start on that here in the next week or so. And lobby areas, classroom areas, they're using every space they have. This was the gym situation a week ago. They were installing the basketball goals and the structure for that. Most of that area has been cleared out, and now they should be starting the flooring here in another week. You can see in the other two outdoor pictures, the picture on the right is the foundation for the concessions building. That's as far as they've gotten, because they had trades working on the main building first. Hellas has finally gotten back out there and started doing some work for the track. The gravel underlayment that goes around the track is all in. It's been rolled in since these pictures were taken. So we're seeing significant progress finally starting to be made there. Here we go, the Lebanon access sidewalk. They were forming that up Friday. Last time I saw it, I haven't been over there today. But that's expected to be in by the end of September. That's the serpentine sidewalk in front of the school, between the school and Lebanon, which allow the kids to access that from the intersection instead of having to go up through the drive, and we can take those protective cones down. Stage areas, locker room, again, by the end of October at this campus. Substantial completion is expected by about that same time. Gyms, concession building, we're looking at Thanksgiving. Completion of the remaining exterior things be after Christmas. Their last schedule said total project completion in February. Go to the concessions and concourse area over at the high school between the new ball fields. If you've been back over there or haven't been over there, you probably need to go. It's much improved from when we got started. The fields are in, the bleachers are in, the covers for the bleachers are in, the bull plans, everything is in and functional. We walked through the concessions building today. The boosters have already gotten in there and got it set up. So we're looking ready to get going there. We also have a certificate of occupancy for it as well from the city of Lowell. Just additional pictures. This is softball bleachers on the lower right. New concessions building with the relocated bleachers that we did have at baseball, softball. They're now looking at football, and they're the bleachers you see in behind the building there. This sort of looks down the concourse. The bottom one is looking toward the east, which is where the indoor facility will be located. And the other one is looking back toward concessions. Baseball on the right, softball on the left. Close-up picture of the baseball covered seats in the press box. Again, at the time this picture was taken, they had just finished their asphalt underlay, and everything you see black there is just about everything is red now. And so we're hoping this rain that's coming in this week doesn't delay us that much, but they were making good progress there. Phase 2 of the SPC, which was the district-wide HVAC and energy saving measures, these numbers have been increased. The lighting portion of the project is better than 91. Building envelopes are more like 50%. They're still working on controls, which is a district vendor, but those are being dealt with on a daily basis. They have crews over there, and they're going through the district for the other schools as well. Program was expected to be done by the time school started this year. COVID and a few other things had something else in mind, and we're now looking at wrapping it up by the end of November. So by Thanksgiving, we should have everybody back in and everything up to speed. Projects and design, speaking of the indoor, we had a work session here this afternoon with all the consultants. And Sandra was here, and we were working through some of the details, both in the building, the gray building at the bottom, that rectangle, that is a 2-story locker room, weight room, office, meeting space. The one at the blue at the top is the indoor facility itself. The next bond sale, which I mentioned earlier, is expected to take place in December. We'll fund this project as well as the next one. By the time we get it funded, get money in the bank, it'll probably be January for a construction start. This is Lakeside Middle School, looking at all the departments that are administrative offices to relocate and where they would go. It's kind of color coded there. We've reviewed this with the superintendent and some of his cabinet. We have scheduled individual departmental meetings with the architects to do scoping in those areas next week, so they can start actually drilling down into the spaces and developing the plans that we need there. You saw some of the other items on the list that we hadn't gotten to yet, or some of the things that are in scoping right now. So there's still enough to keep me busy for a while. Questions?
Only question I had, I can't remember. Were we going to do covered the bleachers we moved at the baseball and softball at the high school? The old bleachers that we moved over there now facing the football. Were we going to put covers over those? I can't remember.
It wasn't in our scope.
I remember. All right. Maybe something we may want to look at eventually.
We do have covered bullpens and batting cages.
Hey, that's nice. Love that.
My only question is on strike. So with the final completion of February, has been any discussion on, including some weekend work or anything like that? I mean, that the one weekend there was a lot of activity there was when we were trying to get the certificate, but there hasn't been any significant weekend work.
There hasn't been that level of work on the weekends. No, sir. They do, however, have specific groups in. The painter came in last weekend, and they were catching up on areas that hadn't been finished yet. Landscaping folks putting in the irrigation system, they've been out there working on the weekends. They're starting on the learning stair. That's a wood vendor, the same guy that does the gym floor. They're going to start working on weekends as well. Every night there's a handful of folks that are there that are doing something. May not be enough in there to get the work done as quickly as we need to. But we're asking them every week, what's next? And they are meeting with the principal every day to tell her what they're planning to do that night, just to make sure we can keep coordination between the two activities. So yes, there's not as much activity as we'd like to see, but they are there.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I think Rick can answer the one I got, so I'll pass.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to take a minute to publicly thank Mr. Martin for all the work he's done, getting the schools open for our kids. So our kids are in the building. Every time I'm there feel like I'm almost there daily. Kids are extremely happy. The teachers are happy. So lots of great things already happening at Walker Middle School and Strike Middle School. So thank you, Mr. Martin, for all of your work to get those schools open safely for our kids.
All right, Human Resource Service Annual Report. Ms. Brown?
We did that before, Eddie.
Sorry. I have a line
She's still
today.
coming up, but
Well, yeah, same person, but not the class size, class report size. Class size report.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Okay, so I'll start off this evening with talking to you a little bit about the start of school for this year. So this is an annual report that's brought to you guys each year, and it's really designed to kind of give you a kind of a glimpse of what the start of the school year looked like, specifically regarding the enrollment at each of our campuses and as a district, and then also the class sizes. So let me see. Okay. There's going to be more numbers on this slide than you're used to seeing in previous years because we have disaggregated the data by learning modality. So you'll see, your in-class average, in school class average, and then your at-home class size average as well. In K through 4, regardless of the learning modality, the state of Texas still wants for us to, adhere to that 22-to-1 ratio. However, as a district, we specifically in the at-home modality, we are kind of pressing that past the 22-to-1. We do think that in the at-home learning modality, there's, a little bit more, you're not restricted by space, and some of the classroom management things aren't as critical when you're in that at-home modality. So you will see that some of our class size averages in the at-home category are going to be beyond that 22-to-1, but we will still have to ask for waivers for those classes that are beyond 22-to-1. You're going to see asterisks besides some of those at-home numbers. So the little descriptor there says, for the asterisk says average includes classes shared between multiple campuses. So with that, because we had about 40% of our district that decided to do the at-home learners, rather than have, and that kind of varied campus by campus, what the percentages were across our elementary campuses. So rather than have, Brent, this is just an example, rather than have Brent have 50 in an at-home learning class, some of those Brent learners were kind of spread out to other campuses. So they're still coded as a Brent student, but they might have a Hackberry teacher talking to them through the screen. So that's what those asterisks indicate that you see there on the screen. Additionally, I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is pre-K kinder first. And of course, you have a couple of campuses that do not have pre-K there. So that would be the reason why there's dashes there instead of numbers for you. On the next slide, we have second, third, fourth, and fifth grades. Of course, the 22-to-1 ratio doesn't apply to our fifth grade classrooms, but that doesn't mean that we want to just, pile in there. We still want to keep it manageable, of course, for our fifth grade teachers. We are coming up on the time frame for families to be able to change their learning modality if they choose to do so. In fact, communications went out to our district families today to let them know that window for expressing interest in changing from in-school to at-home or vice versa is coming up. It seems crazy to say it, but we're getting close to the end of the first grading period. So we are anticipating, we're looking into our crystal ball a little bit, and we are anticipating there will be a large number of at-home learners who decide to become in-school learners. And so with that will, of course, affect staffing. Some of those teachers that have been at-home learning teachers, like online teachers, will have to switch back to becoming in-school learning teachers if those numbers of students that we're anticipating happens if they come back to campus. In this kind of time period where we're in flux, where we are going to have people changing from in-school to at-home and possibly some vice versa, we're going to continue to keep a close eye on our elementary staffing numbers. Right now, there are a couple of pockets at the elementary level where it's tight. There's a lot of kids, but we're going to look at possibly doing some leveling of staff, meaning moving around staff at some campuses that didn't have as much enrollment as we thought they would, moving them to a campus that has more enrollment than we thought that they would. So that will hopefully address the couple of places that are a little bit of a hot spot at the elementary level. But overall, elementary staffing looks manageable overall. We'll go now to middle school staffing. So your average class sizes are listed here. Again, lots more numbers than what you're used to because it is disaggregated by learning modality. So you have your math, your core areas, math, science, history, and English for each middle school, and then your in-school and at-home class averages. Again, the at-home numbers are going to be a little bit higher because we don't have the space restrictions that you have in school, just like the same story as we had with our elementary a moment ago. There is some concern at Walker Middle School specifically. Walker was staffed last spring for 868, an enrollment of 868. Walker's current enrollment is 947. So they are, that's a difference of 79. They have 79 more students than we anticipated they were going to have. And so that is making some of Walker specifically class sizes and teacher load very, very, very heavy. And speaking with the principal at Walker Middle School, there's a few high needs areas. Those include social studies, PE, and theater. Again, as we go through this period of flux or change, I don't know, period of change where people are changing their selection for modality, we're going to be keeping a very, very close eye on Walker, a very close eye. And I will tell you kind of, as we keep watching Walker and keep in contact with Ms. Carr over at Walker and keeping in mind that they have about 80 more kids than what they were staffed for, there might be a need to come back to you guys in October after this period of change with the modality and possibly ask for FTE for Walker to make sure that we're meeting their needs and supporting that staff. Moving to the high school staffing numbers. Again, LEHS has more students on their campus than what they were staffed for last spring. Their difference is not quite as high as Walker. So LEHS was staffed for 2,377 kids. Currently sitting on that campus, kids, either in the campus or at home, are 2,419 kids. So that's a difference of 42 children that they weren't staffed for. On the screen, again, you see the 4 core content areas, but I did add something this year that hasn't been there in the past from what I could tell, and that was a Spanish line. This is specifically, Mr. Flores asked a question in August at the board meeting in August, specifically about Spanish. I think had received some feedback about what Spanish was looking like at the high school level. So looking at those class sizes, you'll see that there are Spanish class size for in school is 25.5. That's higher than any other of the ones listed here. And then their at-home class size averages at 32.9. So I think Mr. Flores' question and kind of concern last month was about a couple of things. One, the class sizes, and 2, this idea of stacking and having multiple levels of Spanish learners, also multiple proficiencies of Spanish learners in the same classroom. And so as I dug into that a little bit more in conjunction with Dr. Mika, found that that's actually accurate. That is happening. It's not in every Spanish classroom, but not by a long shot. But there are a handful of Spanish classrooms where you will have Spanish 2 and 3 in the same room, and then heritage and non-heritage in the same room, meaning native speakers and non-native speakers in the same room. That's not ideal. It's not best practice. I think the reason why we see that in a handful of classrooms at Spanish at the high school is because honestly, they don't have enough staff to separate them all out, to have only Spanish 2 learners, only heritage Spanish 2 learners in one classroom, and then only Spanish 3 heritage learners in another classroom. So the reason why we're seeing that in a handful of classrooms is that you have campus administrators and campus personnel who are getting creative and making do with what they have. And so that's what leads to that stacking that Mr. Flores was asking about last month. After speaking with Dr. Pretty, I've spoken with her a couple of times. Our most recent conversation was this afternoon. There are critical needs at the high school in terms of staffing. One of them is Spanish, low Spanish. In fact, there was a email that I sent around towards the end of July to the board members. And in that, LEHS's dire staffing needs were kind of detailed, and Spanish was one of them. So Spanish, social studies, and math were the three dire critical staffing areas. And if you kind of look at this slide, you can see that's backed up by the data here. If you look at science, excuse me, if you look at science, the in-school class average right now is 23.6. And then your at-home is 34.5. So when you start thinking about those at-home learners beginning to come back to campus, there will be a little bit of offsetting because some of those at-home teachers will also return to campus, but those class sizes are still going to be in the low 30s whenever we see, those folks come back to campus. So those three critical areas still exist: Spanish, math, social studies. And in fact, when talking to Dr. Pretty, science is a fourth really that she's added since July, since she last touched base with us in July about the critical staffing areas. So same as I just kind of detailed with Walker, we're going to continue to keep a close eye on Little Elm High School, especially as we have these folks changing modalities, and keeping a close eye on the data, the enrollment data, the class size data, and then also keeping in close contact with Dr. Pretty. And there might be a need, again, just like with Walker, to come back to you guys in October after every kind of the dust has settled with everybody changing and making their decisions. And also, of course, we're going to speak with the business office too, to ask for possible FTEs to meet the needs of Little Elm High School. So that is kind of the staffing in a nutshell and the class sizes in a nutshell for the first week of school. What questions do you have about any of the information?
Thank you so much for including the Spanish in there, for doing that research. I did hear since the last time we met that we had made some accommodations, I believe. We've removed some students from the classes and put them on some online courses, I believe, that we've done. Mm-hmm. And the teachers are extremely pleased with that. It's reduced the number of students in their class. So thank you very much for that. And the second thing is, I think we need to be very careful that we say, because they're online, it's a little more flexible for teachers. It's a little bit easier for teachers, because when I read comments on Facebook or when I speak to teachers, it's actually more overwhelming because they're responding to hundreds of emails from students and parents throughout the day. That's very time consuming, sure. Probably way beyond their normal workday. So it's concerning that they have some very large, I understand the averages are going to kind of work out because there's some really small classes there, but right. It's a lot of work for these teachers. So let's keep a real close eye on that, and please come back to us for approvals, because that's how we lose our teachers, our good
You're
teachers.
Right. I totally 1,000,000,000% agree with you. That's a made up number, but that means I agree with you a lot. It is absolutely a reason why you could possibly lose staff members. This is already such a tremendously more overwhelming time for teachers than ever it has been before, because of all the COVID, the safety precautions and the virtual learning that they have to adjust to, all the emails they have to respond to, as you articulated. So you're right. We don't want to also overburden them further with, super huge class sizes. So absolutely, I agree. And to your point about the relief that in the form of some classes being done online, that thank you goes to Dr. Mika. I'll pass that thanks right along to you, because she was able to, through her curriculum and learning budget, fund that to have 2 sections of Spanish taught online through a vendor. And that is some relief, but it's not enough relief. And really, when you think about it, those funds that are being used, for a vendor, thinking about how those funds could possibly have been utilized for, FTE. So it's a really great thing that she was able to do, and we're thankful for that. And I know the teachers are too.
Is that mostly available for the higher, the native speakers, or for the stronger Spanish speakers? Is that?
I'm not sure what sections they used it for. We had already purchased some sections of Spanish and American Sign Language using proximity. And then they came back, and after the numbers came in, they asked for 2 more sections. So but it's I leave it up to the principal to decide where they use those sections. We just pay for so many seats.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting. On Walker and Strike, for our total count, you said Walker was higher by almost 100 students. So does that mean that are we down 100 at Strike? I'm thinking just from a leveling perspective, or no, we're just 100 above what we expected at both schools. Both schools are, Walker's over 100 there and Strike is where we expected it.
No, Strike is coming in a little under what we expected. So
Okay.
Strike was staffed for 1,014 students, and their enrollment as of today is 962.
Okay, and we were thinking Walker was going to be 800,
868,
868, and they're now at
47, 947.
So are we able to reallocate any of the teachers at Strike over to Walker to help compensate for these additional kids?
Great question. And unfortunately, the answer to that's no. And here's why. When we have, so that difference there at Strike is about 40, give or take 45. And so, but when you have those spread out as we do across grade levels, like, a handful of them are at 6, handful of 7, handful of 8, it's not like all in one place so that we could take one, like it's not all in 6th grade. So we could take like a science teacher and move them
Right,
over.
and that was kind of where my question was going, was it grade specific or were we just, no, it's 10 here, 10 there?
Yes,
Okay.
they're spread.
And it's a good question. I'm glad you asked that because we discussed this in cabinet and, as a district, we're down, and I don't remember the exact number from what we were projected, roughly in the 100 student
over 100.
range. And we could be down in, give 100, even 200 students and still need to add staff. And it goes back to certifications. It goes back to the specific needs of the different grade levels.
Classes, what we're offering at each one. I understand.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I was just wanting to make sure that,
But I'm glad you asked it because
Me too.
that's the challenge is even if we're down off of what our projections are, we still might need to come to the board and ask for FTEs because of those needs. So
Right.
thank you for that question.
Yeah, insightful question.
So I did have a question. I'm just kind of looking at the numbers.
Okay.
Particularly from the at-home learners. And when I remember we did the survey, I think we were 65 or 60, 40 about that. But it seems like we have more at-home learners looking at these charts than we do have in school. So it's flipped. Or maybe I'm reading this wrong.
we're just offering fewer teachers and more sections.
Okay. Gotcha. So the numbers are just flipped. Okay. Gotcha.
And that goes to, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this in the next report, but class size waivers.
That's on our consent agenda, but right, so.
You may want to just kind of mention it now so they would understand.
So, yes, there are fewer teachers who are teaching our at-home learners, which is, I think, Mr.
Okay.
English, where you're seeing that higher class size average.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
And then in the consent agenda, there is a list of classes that are higher, elementary classes that are higher than the 22-to-1 ratio. And with only one exception, all of the ones that we need to get waivers from TEA are all at-home classes.
All right, any other questions?
I guess when they go back in school, do you think we're going to have to come back for more waivers?
Yes, I do. I think that
Okay.
there will be a good chance that will happen. And of course, every month I'll make sure I put them down, the ones that we're requesting waivers for, and included in the consent agenda every month.
Just thought of a question. After the next 9-week period, are we allowing them to reselect if they want to move to
Yeah, at the end of each grade
9
period
weeks?
throughout the year.
And that's a requirement of TEA.
So that means it gets interesting every 9 weeks. It just totally reshuffles and remaster schedule, all of that.
Yeah, and it will, I will tell you, just for full transparency, we were talking about it today, as a matter of fact, just the impact that may have on our teachers with moving teachers around and keeping the numbers where they need to be. Obviously I love giving choice to our parents, but we're really hoping that the parents, they've seen what home, learning at home is, and if they choose to come back, we're hoping they stay. Because I do believe that being in school is it's where you're going to get the best education.
All right, Thank you very much. So now the next item is the Human Resource Service Annual Report.
Yes, you get more of me. Okay, so I am thrilled, y'all, to bring you my very first ever Human Resource Services Annual Report. So this is, I love this. I almost like it to kind of like a state of the department kind of address. So I'm going to kind of talk you through the successes that we experienced in 1920, some of which I was here for, some of which I was not. And then also what we're looking forward to 2021 and what we're going to be focusing on. So successes. So let's start with our student services side of the department. The student services folks rolled out the Lobo Way. They really spent a lot of time focusing on SEL, social emotional learning, and behavior management. So there was a curriculum written and implemented for all the elementary campuses in 1920. That was a collaboration between Mr. Miller and Denise Jensen. And they included topics like identifying emotions, following directions, and making smart choices, because we know that those things are really critical to the success of the student. The behavior management piece included PBIS, positive behavior intervention supports, and then also restorative practices. So, of course, there's has to be consequences, but then on the opposite side of those consequences, what are we doing to kind of restore relationships, rebuild relationships? Also, the student services folks focused on attendance, collaborated with the campus PEIMS clerks and the assistant principals to shore up attendance monitoring and also the follow-up processes. So we know that, this kiddo has been absent X number of times. So what are we doing to follow up with that student, with that family to try and get them back into school? And as a result of those efforts, there was an increased attendance. The percentage was increased in the fall of 2019. Also, the bullying protocol was a focus for 1920 in student services. There's training for all of the administrative staff. There was this real effort and real desire to make sure that there was consistency across the district, that the way that bullying complaints and investigations was handled was consistent. And then also there was a drive created that houses all of the templates and the resources for bullying. We just wanted to make sure it was easy and accessible for our campus administrators who are having to do any kind of bullying investigating. Also, in terms of successes, this is from the human resources side of the department. Evaluations of staff were standardized and digitized through Strive. So no longer were we shuffling through piles and piles of paperwork. It all is very electronic. The evaluator, the appraiser, the campus administrator can sign it electronically. The person who's being appraised can sign it electronically. There's no longer one evaluation for custodians that's completely different from the lead custodian, that's completely different from so there's a lot of standardizing so that we can be efficient and work really, really smart. Also, from the human resources side, recruiting was a big success. There was, for HR people across the country, we were having to transition from the more traditional style of recruiting, going to job fairs and, heading out to Baylor or UNT, and instead doing virtual recruiting. And it was a different feel and it took some getting used to, but we were able to successfully transition from traditional to virtual recruiting. Also, in the last year, we added pooled postings. So pooled postings are like a heaven sent. And the reason why is because when you have a vacancy pop up unexpectedly, you already have this pool of candidates, so you can just go straight to, you don't have to post the job, review the job description, then post the job, then wait 14 days before you can hire. So pooled positions and postings really has been a success. We've also begun sending out weekly notifications to the entire district about current vacancies. That's increased our transparency level. So no longer do you have to know somebody who knows somebody to know what positions are vacant. The vacancies are sent out to everyone, and then you can tell your friends, your church members, your sorority sisters, whoever about the vacancy. So it's really increased our candidate pool, not only externally, but also internally. We're also utilizing a new platform for posting auxiliary positions. It's called Indeed. So you are well aware that we are in need of custodians, we're in need of maintenance workers. And so we were what we've been doing just is not getting us the results that we need. So let's think outside of the box. And we found this platform called Indeed. It's free of charge. And when we posted our custodian maintenance positions on Indeed, and within 48 hours, we had 20 applicants for some custodian positions. So that was a huge, huge success. And it's something that we just did a couple months ago. Our onboarding process, we have kind of fancied up our onboarding process. We bring in our new hires and we do an orientation with them. They get to meet in person, live and in person, the superintendent. They get to meet the deputy superintendent at, that people, well, this is before, we had to stop doing them face to face. But people could just stop in and get, so it really, the feedback from the new hires when we were still able to do it face to face was that they very much felt welcomed. They felt important. We gave them some little LMISD swag, and so it was really a very big success. And we didn't keep them for too long. That was their favorite thing. And then we had some Ask HR meetings with our custodial and maintenance staff. There's going to be some pictures on the next slide of this. It was amazing. We really realized that maybe we're not doing the best job of disseminating information to everyone in the district. We really rely on email, that's normal. We rely on email, but not every employee in our district really uses email and utilizes computers. And we have a whole segment of our district work staff that does not check email on a regular basis, if at all. So we went to them. We figured instead of, hoping that they check their email or, we'll just go to them and provide the information. So we did some face-to-face meetings with those groups of employees. And I think it was really greatly appreciated. They asked lots of questions. We're very thankful for that time. And we enjoyed ourselves. Additionally, we did a retiree drive-up surprise, which was so fun. So we thought that the retirees, they've dedicated their entire lives to being educators, and the way that their year ended last year, the spring, we weren't able to honor them. We weren't able to do, kind of the big appreciation. So we wanted to do something extra special. So we got in cahoots with their family members and we asked them to keep it secret, but we don't think many of the family members kept it secret. And then we loaded up the van, the little wrapped van, and we went to their houses and we just kind of almost like Publishers Clearinghouse in some ways, knocked on the doors except for no money. And we gave them a really nice ceramic, award, piece of art. And I think that they really felt appreciated. Here's some pictures of this is the maintenance and custodial meetings that we had with them to deliver some information. It was over in Lakeside. And then these are pictures of our retiree surprise drive-up event. So those are some of the successes that we are really, really proud of that have happened over the 1920 year. And this isn't really something that happened in the 1920 year. This really happened at the beginning of this school year, but I literally cannot help myself from sharing it. So ESS has been really successful in the first few weeks of school. The first week of school is what you have here. And there was 100% fill rate in the first week of school. Now, the first week of school, everybody's super gung-ho to come back to, the substitutes are chomping at the bit to get sub jobs. So kind of maybe might expect 100% fill rate that first week of school. You can see from this slide, there was 81 jobs, 81 absences, and all 81 of them were filled. So let's move to the second week of school where kind of the newness might be starting to wear off. We had 169 jobs the second week of school. So it doubled. For week one was 81, week two is 169, and ESS was still able to maintain a 92% full rate. So, and of course their job's going to get more and more difficult as the year goes on and, more and more people are absent, but we're really, really happy with the way that they've been able to support campuses thus far. So let's talk about what our areas of focus are for the upcoming school year. We are bound and determined to be able to implement the HR2U initiative this year. So that was actually something that was in place that was the previous HR director had scheduled to start in spring of 2020. But because of COVID, they weren't able to do it in spring of 2020. So in fall of 2020, we are going to increase our HR visibility and accessibility by making some campus visits. And we're going to do that at least once per semester. We're also looking to refine some processes. Our student services side is going to continue to work on the Lobo way and kind of start to implement some district-wide campus norms and expectations. And the student services folks are also going to be working on refining our RTI, specifically our academic RTI process, response to intervention. On the HR side, we're going to be kind of taking a look at our voluntary transfer process for teachers, nurses, and librarians and kind of really, there's not really one. So we're going to really establish a voluntary transfer process and try to get input from our campus administrators as we're doing that. And then we're also going to take a closer look at our staffing process. What's the process for expressing a staffing need? What's the process for vetting that need? How are we going to respond to the need? And then also, like, how are we going to catalog the need so that we don't forget this was a need, you know? And then we're going to continue our emphasis on recruiting. We're kind of anxious a little bit about what recruiting is going to look like going forward. Is it going to stick to be virtual only? Is it going to be some sort of combination of virtual and face-to-face? So we'll continue to look at that. And then increasing our social media presence is important to us. We think that's a really important recruiting tool. We already have a Twitter, HR Twitter, and we're looking to expand and go into the Facebook world as well. And these are just some stats. You can look through these at your leisure. This is, like the number of full-time and part-time employees we have. 981 of those, 533 are teachers. We're down in student teachers this semester. Understandably so. We're only going to have 12. A lot of student teaching programs are not having as many student teachers because of the COVID situation. So that's the stats for our substitutes through ESS. And I will note that ESS is currently in the process of onboarding 25 additional substitutes. So there will be more folks that will be in our substitute pool to help our fill rate remain high. This year, we've hired 96 professionals and 43 paraprofessionals. We do still have some work to go in terms of paraprofessional auxiliary. We have 29 vacancies currently in that area, and then 4 teacher vacancies, and then 5 other professional vacancies currently. And then that is everything for our HR annual reports. Do you have any questions?
I do have a question, or more of a comment. On the fill rate for your substitutes, we did the first couple of weeks, to be truthfully honest here, the first 3 or 4 weeks, we were probably one of the few districts that had in-school class, right? So it was probably pretty easy to fill. Can we get that report next month to see what September looks like when a lot of those other schools went back into in-school?
Sure.
I mean, Louisville still does like an A-B situation where Mondays and Wednesdays, part of their kids go in and so now we have more opportunity for more substitutes
More districts that are in
throughout the
school.
area.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else?
No. Got my-
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you. This is Brian. Appreciate you. Very thorough. Appreciate everything you're doing. And you're really helping us improve our HR department. So kudos to you and blessed to have you here.
We have the curriculum and learning update by Dr. Mika.
Good evening, President Montemayor, Superintendent Gallagher, and board members. We're here tonight to give you our monthly curriculum and learning update. And as we start the new school year, I just wanted to share again what are the sub-departments of the larger curriculum and learning department. And we have student information services, our digital learning and library media services team. We have our professional learning and advanced academics. We have curriculum and learning services, and we also have testing and federal programs. And so looking at the next few slides kind of rounds up who our staff are in each of those areas. In our student information services and PEIMS, that's led by Brandon Thompson, who's our Director of Data Processing and Information Services. And then our digital learning and library media services team is led by Jeff Wiseman, our Director for Digital Learning and Library Media Services. And then we have our professional learning and advanced academics, and that's headed up by Amanda Ball. And then our testing and federal programs is run by Dr. Ashley Glover. We have our curriculum and learning team, which is our largest team on the department, and that's led by Mr. Doug Sevier, who's our director there. So we've talked a lot over the past few months about our response to the pandemic and our back to learn plans. And so tonight we kind of want to put a final cap on that and talk about what each team has done to pivot in order to be successful in supporting our campuses during the pandemic. And so our student information services and teams, a lot of this was behind the scenes, but they're the ones that got our focus reprogrammed for the different types of attendance that we had to do. We had to look at our policies and rewrite some of our attendance procedures. And the real challenge was to be able to create that flexible procedural and technical framework that could change on a dime pending TEA's guidance to us. And then we had to be able to write those and train our campuses and our teachers on the different procedures that we would be able to take attendance and keep our student information in. Kind of a shadow campus, we can keep those students separate. And so we can move them and then know where we have to plug students in at the end school. They have also created numerous reports for us that are going to be helpful for all of our principals as we begin to see the data roll in after September 28th. We'll be able to live watch the students as their decisions are changing. And so that will help us get a head start on scheduling. Our digital learning and library media services, it's a small team. Jeff Wiseman's the director there, and then we have Melissa and Misty, who are our digital learning facilitators. And they really played an integral part in developing coursework and training all through the spring while we had the pandemic closure, but then also leading up to our back to school with our extra days of professional learning. And so the challenge there was to train all instructional staff quickly in best practices for their designated learning management systems, and also to give them tools in their toolbox for virtual learning. And our stance as a district was, regardless if you were an designated at-home teacher or a designated in-school teacher, everyone has to be extremely proficient with the learning management system and has to understand the tools that we have available to them for virtual learning. Because at any given point, you might be quarantined or you might have a student that is quarantined where virtual learning has to come into play at the flip of a switch. Then we have our professional learning, who has been led by Amanda Ball, and I'm going to let her speak to this.
Yeah, I think one of them, and I get to present to you guys in a few minutes. So I think one of the biggest challenges we had is that we had to shift from in-person professional learning to doing everything virtually in, overnight, essentially. And it was a very short period of time. So we had to continue to be relevant, and it had to be meaningful, and we had to do it right away. So we had to keep people engaged, and we had to make sure that that was, meeting those demands of what teachers needed, like right at that moment. And everybody in the professional learning world was kind of stunned. So that was a huge challenge. So addressing the elephant in the room was that it's really easy to multitask. And when you have a student, there are consequences for students who don't pay attention. You don't do that with adults. Adults are adults. So you can't say, if you don't listen, you can't do that. So instead, we had to really be creative and make sure that we were on point and engaging with everything that we were doing. And that had to happen like overnight.
We also have advanced academics, also led by Ms. Ball. She'll be sharing here a report on our advanced academics also, and we'll be addressing a lot of this in her report. But really, I think the biggest challenge that we had there was moving to online AP exams for the first time ever. And so working through that, then also working through making sure that we had all of our policies updated and that we were still meeting the needs of those students that were registered for the fall in our AP dual credit and on-ramps courses, and ensuring that all of our teachers had the professional learning that they needed in order to be able to teach those classes for us in the fall. Curriculum and learning, this team led by Mr. Severe really worked to make sure that our students our teachers had the content that they needed to be successful.
Right, and I think our board president, Mr. Gallagher, members of the board, really our goal was to ensure equity across both platforms. Whether it was face-to-face or whether it was at home, we needed to make sure that the quality of the rigor and the relevance of each lesson was going to be maintained across both platforms. We couldn't sacrifice one to improve the other. And so that really became our key goal, was to make sure that equity was there. The challenge was supporting teachers to increase the knowledge of how to deliver your curriculum and assess the learning through CSAs. Again, we've never done a CSA online away from a teacher who could watch the kid and help the kid when necessary. So really trying to make sure, because that the way we assess through a CSA is to ensure, is our curriculum at a high enough level to where the kids got what they deserved, and is the instruction occurring at such a level that they're getting out of the curriculum what they need to make sure the kid is, again, receiving equity across both platforms. Solution is we work really tightly with our digital learning and professional learning. You heard from Ms. Ball earlier, and really to make sure that we trained on the use of those LMSs, the testing platforms. Ashley Glover came in to bear with that, actually brought up herself one Sunday morning and tested it out with some of her kids on Dino and some other platforms to make sure it would actually work. And so getting really creative to make sure that we would, again, have that equity brought to bear for all learners, regardless of what their situation was. And so that really became our burden to bear. And I'm really proud of the team and what we've done across all of our contents and across all the levels, both, elementary, middle, and high.
And then we have Dr. Ashley Glover, who works with both assessment and federal programs, and she's really has been a key the past couple of weeks as we began online map testing for the first time ever. And so she's had quite a few challenges over the past couple of weeks, but has done a great job both in our assessment and federal programs.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It has definitely been an interesting time in assessment in a lot of different ways. But what we wanted to make sure we do is that we have the same opportunities, just like Mr. Severe said, for our in-person and our at-home students. So we do have map testing, CSAs, and we want to provide the opportunity for our kids to have that same experience no matter where they are. So what we had to do is we had to use, work with the digital learning department and look at using a couple of different platforms, including Dino for 9 through 12 and GoGuardian for K through 8. And so when we do that, we're able to see how things are going. Are our students able to log in? Because the main thing for our students that we've seen over the last couple of weeks is if they have difficulty getting in, that's really where their frustration. It's not the test itself. So everybody's been really great making sure that our students have that opportunity to access the test just as they need it. And it's been good. It's been interesting, but it's certainly been great. And then for federal programs, also been an exciting. We have our regular federal programs such as ESEA or ESSA that we work with, but also we have all the acronym alphabet soup you could possibly want here. Some new grant awards, including ESSER, and our Instructional Continuity Grant, our Corona Relief Fund, FEMA, School Violence Prevention Program, several new grant programs that have come up to meet the need with our COVID challenges. And so in conjunction with the business office, we've been working on a lot of different modalities and making sure that we are able to apply for, receive, and execute all the grants that are offered to us.
I think one of the next big challenges as we come up here with 4 weeks in now is when our units of study start to end. And both Mr. Severe and Dr. Glover talked about this a little bit as the CSAs, our common summative assessments, which are our common district created assessments that are going to have to be given both to our at-home students and our in-school students. And that was one of the things that we've talked about in depth here as a department, is ensuring that there is equity. The same exam is given, so it meets the same level of rigor, whether you're an at-home student or an in-school student. So some of the things that Dr. Glover has done with the MAP testing, our teachers will be able to use in proctoring those exams for our at-home learners. And so that is a challenge that our teachers and our campuses and the department will be facing in the next over the next few weeks, is the common summative assessments. But I just want to say that I couldn't be more proud to work with this group of directors and coordinators and facilitators that are on this department. I've said this before openly to y'all, and I'm going to continue saying it, but I wouldn't want to work with anyone else besides this team right here standing beside me and the rest of the team that isn't here tonight. I don't know that we could have gotten it done if it wasn't for this fabulous team that we've put together. They have been moving as fast as they could since Friday, March 13th, and have done amazing things. When I look at what other districts have put forward and what we're able to put forward, half the size of some of the other districts around. It was an amazing, amazing effort, all the way from writing protocols and never losing sight of the fact that we are here to educate the students, and we're not going to let the COVID pandemic get us down, but we're going to keep on plugging and pushing and ensuring that we are providing the best education that we can to the students in Little Elm. So thanks, guys. Any questions?
Just a comment, sorry. As humans, we're always much quicker to complain about situations. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had several parents come to me and just say how amazing it's been this year with all the planning. From planning to implementation to delivery, they have all been very pleased with what we've been doing here in Little Elm ISD. So thank you very much for all your work, and it's been wonderful.
Thank you.
And I want to echo Mr. Flores. I've heard the same thing. I've talked to neighbors and others, and they are extremely happy, one, with the level of communication that's going out, and two, the fact that we've chosen a model that kind of suits them. And so they're able to do things online with their children. So I think that is a huge plus in the community. The only question, and I think you kind of answered a little bit, was that proctoring piece. Just kind of want to understand that piece a little bit more, because I know that gets into, I know some schools will bring all the kids in, take the test, and then send them back home. Some kids will do it at home. I just want to really understand how you guys are thinking along that lines. And then, how we're tracking the testing associated with that. So.
Okay, so we have a third-party vendor, without going into a whole bunch of detail unless you want us to.
Okay.
But we have several third-party vendors that we can use, GoGuardian, Dino, where we can watch the student's computer, because when they log in through the Clever portal, they log into our IP address, and our teachers are able to watch all of the computers to ensure that the computer that they are taking the test on is not also going off to Google to search the answer. Okay. We've also talked about, split screening so that we can also, we haven't done this yet, but one of the options that we have available to us is if the teachers can split screen or have two monitors, they can also have the kids on a Zoom, so they can also see that the student is the one taking the exam. Okay, so those are some things, challenges that we never dreamed of being faced with. But us running through the map assessments, really the issue with the map assessments wasn't on our end, it was a national issue on the NWEA end. And so, we do have the third-party vendors, GoGuardian and Dino, that we've been using. And we've used GoGuardian for years. in the classroom. So when you had all the students out there working on a project, the teacher could see without, going to every single computer what the students were actually working on. Were they actually working on the Google Doc, or were they surfing the internet looking for fun stuff?
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Dr. Micah.
Thank you.
Yep, Dr. Micah and team, thank you very much. And Mr. Flores, thank you for those words, because so much planning has gone into this year. And I've heard that from community members as well, that they're very excited about how smooth this year has gone. And there's always going to be road bumps, but because of the team that we've had, and they've been working on it since March, it's gone as smooth as it can go, I believe. So thank you all very much for that. Mr. Severe?
We have the Proclamation 2021, adoption of pre-K materials and resources.
Yes, President Montemayor, members of the school board, Mr. Gallagher, thank you for letting me come up tonight. I'm really going to give a preview of what we have going on. Each year, we are tasked with a proclamation of adopting new materials. So this past year, we adopted all new reading materials for the high school. And I want to give full credit to where credit is due. And a lot of that goes to Miss Amanda Rolfe, who we brought in last year. And she has really just taken off and run with what secondary reading should be focused on, and really helped us design a product that we purchased and brought in with reading libraries for the classroom, textbooks for the kids, online, both online and hard copies, but has really got a vision for where she wants this secondary reading program to go. And so I would just want to give her full credit for all the implementation that was done. All the books came in over the summer, and we're up and running in the high school. But that brings us to Proclamation 2021, and that is our pre-kindergarten system. And really, we're excited to get this proclamation attacked this year because of the fact that we know if we can get it right with our pre-kindergarten, that is the easiest time to close some of the gaps before they get momentum and get bigger and bigger as each grade level goes by. So if we can get this proclamation done correctly, provide some really good resources for our teachers to really build up this most vulnerable population, we can close these gaps even quicker. So as a reminder to what we do, this is in our audit spreadsheet that we utilize to make sure that we're staying on task. But in the fall, what we do, we form our district committee, we order sample materials, we bring the teacher committee together to review the rubric that we'll use, and then we send the rubric out to the school so all teachers can be a part of that. Dr. Glover and myself will be working very tightly with the pre-K. She's already set up some of the committee meetings, formed the teacher groups, and we're already off and running, trying to contact vendors, making sure that we have the materials for them to look at. Once we get that process going in the fall, in the spring, we start to set up our vendors' presentation to the teacher committee so the vendors can come in and do a sales pitch. They know their products better than we do, so they come in and the teachers get to hear really what's going on. Then we set up a Q&A after the teachers have had time to look over the material and heard the presentation. We'll set up another meeting for Q&As that they've just had the ability to dive deeper into the materials and let them ask questions that they may need answered. Then we set up our parent preview night, a final meeting with our teachers, make sure that we're going to choose a product and package that is best for our district with the monies that we have available. And then finally, TEA in May says that what funding we have available, and we can submit the orders for new materials through EMAP. So really, that's the process we go through. And like I said, this is a critical adoption with kindergarten or with pre-K, because we know this is a group of kids we need to hit right off the bat and make sure we get them caught up to speed before any gaps can even fill. So with that, that's Proclamation 21 coming up this fall, spring, and then we'll be ordering materials in May. Any questions? Yes. Glad to have Dr. Glover partnering with me. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Swear. Now, Ms. Ball, we have the professional learning advanced academics update.
Good evening again, Board of Trustees, President Montemayor, Mr. Gallagher. It's good to see you all. So this is going to be a brief presentation to update you on our priorities to engage each employee in meaningful learning experiences that support student success and to engage each student in learning experiences that lead to increased post-secondary readiness. So we know that when educators increase their practice, when they are better at what they do, that students get better. So one of the things that we really emphasize is teachers going to professional learning. And we don't really even have to encourage teachers to better their practice, because this summer, between March and August, on their own, teachers earned about 11,000 professional learning hours off contract. So that was the first kind of number I wanted to share with you guys. So improving their practice is a benefit to students, and teachers are so dedicated that they do this on their own. We just kind of have to guide them in the right direction. And that doesn't even include admin hours. So when you put admin hours in there, our principals, APs, our coordinators, it increases by about 3,000 more hours. So to prepare teachers for our students returning, for whatever modality that the students may be learning in, on top of the LMS training that they already did in the summer, we were able to certify 513 teachers as remote learning educators through TCEA. So this is exciting. TCEA was a great partner because they let us customize the course. So, a lot of districts that kind of purchased this course did it as is. And I don't know if they didn't ask or what, but we were like, can we make this meet our standards? Can we put our cornerstones in here? And they were like, sure. So it was a campus course anyway. And we have about 20 teachers that were either late hires or still working on the course. But right now we have 513 certified remote learning educators in our district. So that's great. And, kind of mentioned this earlier, but this entire, these changes that have hit our education system really hit professional learning hard. And one question that came up right away was, how are we going to continue to provide meaningful professional learning in this kind of remote learning environment? When you're in a room like this and you can see each other's faces and you can read body language, it was difficult. It's difficult to not be able to see people's, faces, to hear tone, to be able to know when it's time for a break, things like that. And right away, we knew that we had to have some remote professional learning norms. And that was difficult to do, but we did that away. We started asking the question, well, what would we normally do in this situation? And does that work? And if the answer is yes, then we just did that. Because sometimes we were trying to reinvent things when we didn't really need to. We just needed to do the thing that we always do, and just maybe tweak it just a little bit. We just kept sharing strategies with teachers that we knew worked. Teachers need to see things and practice them. And we kept doing that. We just did it in a remote learning environment. We learned quickly that 3 hours is way too long on a Zoom. So we do 3-hour professional learning sessions in person all the time. We can't do that in a remote learning environment. So we started offering bite-sized professional learning, 45 minutes here and there. And we learned to lean in. So what I mean by that is we stopped fighting it. We quickly learned that this wasn't going to go away right away. This was going to be something that we were going to live with for a minute. And that as limiting as remote learning can seem, there were some really great things that happened as a result. For example, we were offering webinars on Wednesdays for teachers, and we had 100 people sign up and come to the first one, this virtual webinar. We would never have that many teachers be able to come to a session after school because they don't have daycare, or that by the time they get here, it's already started, or, whatever, any number of reasons. So that was kind of a good thing that, that happened as a result of that. We had teachers over the summer that could go to AP Summer Institute offered by colleges that they never would have been able to go to before because they were all virtual all of a sudden. So, some of these things allowed us to meet teachers and students where they were, and we kind of kept getting to do the best of the jobs that we do. And Dr. Mika mentioned earlier the AP Summer Institute and our students taking the AP exams online for the first time. So I'm not like rainbows and kittens kind of person, but I do always look for the bright side, and I'm a realist, and we have a job to do. We have goals to accomplish, and we have teachers and students that can't wait for us to figure things out. We have to move. And being able to assess the situation and look at all the possibilities that exist in the current situation that we're in, we could have easily made excuses in the spring and been like, well, our students aren't going to do well on this AP exam because of fill in the blank. But we didn't make those excuses. Our teachers were prepared and our students performed. And I actually have an updated number because we had students take the makeup exam that missed it. So we had 531 college credits earned, which is $148,000, almost $150,000 saved in tuition. But I was able to, I left it over there. It's okay, it's in my backpack. But I just, I was able to pull the Ashley, it's written on the back of my agenda. Yeah. Do you want to do the big reveal? So I just looked it up to see how many more. So it's 651 credit hours earned and $182,000 in tuition saved by students. And that's just from AP. That's not even counting our dual credit and our on-ramps and all that kind of stuff. So, being able to look for what we can do instead of like all the stuff that we can't do, I think that's a positive thing that came out of this for us. So anyway, that's all I have. I've kind of sped through that. But what questions do you have? Any?
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Great job, Mrs. Ball. Thank you so much. And again, part of that great team who really helped us transition to this new world we're living in right now. So thank you so much for all that you're doing for curriculum and learning and for our students here in Little ISD, as well as our teachers.
Perfect. Moving on, we are approval of minutes. If anyone was able to review the minutes from August 24th and have a motion to accept as provided.
I'll move.
Deanna, is there a second?
Second.
Jason? All right, any questions or comments on those minutes from August 24th?
Mm-mm.
Are all those in favor of approving? Alan, are you abstaining? All right, and one abstention. Then we have the minutes from our September 8th special board meeting. Anyone, we would review those and put up a motion to accept as provided.
So moved.
Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Dan, any questions or comments on those minutes?
Mm-mm.
All those in favor? Then abstaining? Two abstaining. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, now we have our action items. We have a consideration of approval of the financial report for July. Mr. Anderson?
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Gallagher. We have the July financials
Thank you.
for the 2019-20 fiscal year. And as you know, we're in between fiscal years, and our budget amendments and financial information presented includes current amendments and the financial information through September 2020 for the 2020-21 fiscal year. The financials include the general fund, the capital projects fund, debt service fund, and special revenue funds. And in the general fund, we had no major budget amendments, neither in the capital projects fund or the debt service fund. For first budget or increase in annual operating costs for new facilities as a future financial consideration, long-term building program to meet the needs of student enrollment growth, and the 86th legislative session that I know it's a year past, but its proposed school finance bill has included items which will impact property taxes, school funding, formula, and instructional programs. And we continually watch the risk of the financial stability of sustainability at the state level and the ongoing preventive deferred maintenance cost of buildings, and then our capital reimbursement resolution from 2017 bond up to $10 million as communicated in the bond program election. And the actual amount reimbursed is contingent on availability of bond funds and need in general operating fund. And Rick Martin alluded to us releasing about $5 million towards the projects. And so we have a capital reimbursement about $5 million that's available if needed. The four major economic factors which have a direct impact on school funding revenue: a slowdown or decline in property values, a recession causing an increase in uncollected property taxes, or a downturn in forecasted student enrollment and or attendance. And LASD has experienced a beginning of the year slowdown in enrollment growth compared to prior year. And this was for about the first 15 days. The finance we'll continue to monitor, and then we'll make revenue adjustments in February 2021 if needed. And the state's inability to fund education is passed on HB3, causing adjustments to funding levels. And the 87th legislative regular session begins January 12th, 2021, and ends May 31st, 2021. Our general fund proposed amendments, you can see that we don't have any proposed amendments for the month of September. And our appropriations are coded at the campus level is about 80%, and that's been pretty consistent through the years. And our projected total appropriations $80 million, and we have a balanced budget. And this was so we matched the initial budget that was approved by the board. And there's no changes. Our proposed budget, you can see that we have a $30,202,000 budget fund balance without any changes. Our capital outlay fund, as you know, we've sold $195 million of the $235 million authorization. We have $40 million left. And these are the projects that are funded out of our bond program. And you can see the columns in the current budget. And as Rick went over a few of these today. And this is just a continuation. And we'll have these posted on our website this week for you to review further. And these are the completed projects. Our debt service fund, we are estimated a $7 million budgetary fund balance for 2020-21. I see I need to correct that date on there. And the financials in the board packet. The administration recommends approval of the July 2020 financial reports as submitted.
There, motion to approve those financials as presented.
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, any more questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? Thank you very much. All right, now we have, first the adoption of the tax rate for the 2021 school year, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, and adoption of the tax rate, normally we've had brought this to the board in August, and this year we've brought to September and waited for our certified values, and we submitted our paperwork and for the May maximum compressed tax rate to TEA and was approved. This tax rate is the same tax rate that was presented at the budget workshop. The minister recommends approval of the following proposed tax rate for the 2020-21 school year. The maintenance and operations tax rate of 1.0236 per $100 of taxable assessed property values. Interest and sinking will remain the same at 47 cents per $100 of taxable assessed property values. So the total tax rate of $1.4936 per $100 of taxable assessed property values. And so this was a decrease of about 0.0447 cents. And I'm sorry. So you can have the motion.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I heard Dan first. All right. Any questions on the tax rate?
No, you said this is a reduction from what we did last year. I think you
Yes.
said that. Yeah. Okay.
Last year, our total tax rate was 1.5383, and this year 1.4936.
And that's on the
So
maintenance and
almost 5
operations.
cents.
Yeah, it's on the M&O because of the state funding for HB3, correct?
Yes,
That's just good news. I want to reiterate.
it
No,
is.
just reiterating too that that's what the HB3 is.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor? Passes. All right. Now, Mr. Anderson, we also have the consideration of approval of act on delegation of authority to approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit.
Yeah, we've been discussing this for a while now, the change in the HB3 requiring the district to go up for a recapture election to purchase attendance credits. So HB3 updated the statuses surrounding qualification for recapture payments. Recapture is no longer tied to a certain level of wealth per WADA. The districts are now subject to recapture payments if they have local revenue in excess of entitlement. And a district is considered to have excess local revenue if the district's Tier 1 local share exceeds the district's entitlement. The district must reduce its Tier 1 revenue by selecting one of the following 5 statutory options. 1, consolidate with one or more other school districts. 2, detachment of property. 3, purchase of average daily attendance credits from the state. And 4, contract for education of non-resident students. 5, tax-based consolidation with another district. And option number 3 is the most feasible for the district and is the option most districts with excess local revenue choose. And we're estimating about $270,000 in recapture for 2020-21. The administration recommends delegating authority to the superintendent to approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits. And we're asking if you could read the motion.
So I move for the 2020-2021 school year, we delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code, TEC 11.1511, subchapter C, subparagraph 4, to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC subchapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This includes approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan, questions? I did have one question. Isn't this what we still need to actually have we're going to vote for the public approval to pay this?
Yes, and that'll happen on November 3rd. And,
Okay, so then I guess this will also just be pending on that as well?
yes, pending the approval of it. And so that'll happen on November 3rd. If it passes, it'll allow us to send our recapture dollars back to the state. And the change here this year was that HB3 requires an election, even if we have enough state funds that the state sends us. So they used to net the recapture from those dollars. Now, even if they net the funds, we still have to get the approval of the community. So, and I know Cecilia and Mr. Gallagher have been putting together a information dissemination package on this before.
Yeah, and just on top, going off of that, it'll look a lot different than obviously a bond election, because a bond election, there's so much more involved. This is pretty cut and dry, so the communication will be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I was going to say, I received a call from a resident about this the other day, and because I guess they already asked for the sample ballot, so it's already
Yeah, it's out there.
getting out there, and they were asking what it's about. So we do need to make sure we're ready to start answering that question. I was actually going to bring that up in my comments tonight.
We've already got a plan on that,
Good.
so we'll have a video that will go out that we're putting together, and some other additional communication.
I do have one question real quick. Before HB3 was passed, do you remember off the top of your head what we were scheduled or projected to have been paying in the recapture this year?
I believe it was 1.1 or 1.3 million
Okay.
dollars.
So this is a significant reduction in case people have questions regarding that also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of this motion? Thank you very much. No, you're staying up there for the next two. So with consideration approval of Little Elm ISD interlocal summary report.
Yeah, you'll see it in your own interlocal summary report. There's two items. One is for early childhood intervention of North Central Texas. And this is a memorandum of understanding between Little Elm ISD and ECI of North Central Texas. And it's for each child enrolled in early childhood intervention program assisted under IDEA Part C, and will participate in preschool programs assisted under IDEA Part B, and the ECI and the local education agency are responsible for ensuring a smooth and effective transition to those preschool programs. And again, this is an interlocals allow us to do business with other governmental agencies. And then also My Health, My Resource, MHMR of Tarrant County. And this is also special ed with Courtney Clover. It's an interlocal agreement with MMHMR of Tarrant County for facility usage. And will provide early childhood intervention services to eligible children and families who reside in the Denton County service area. And Little Elm ISD will provide office space to accommodate MHMR Tarrant County ECI staff. And the administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD interlocal summary report as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the interlocal summary report as submitted?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Jason? All right, any questions or comments on these?
I was just going to point out a typo on the expiration date for the ECI. It just says 2201 or 20,201.
Oh, sorry, 2021.
So just something that,
That's a long time.
well, we know, but we still have to make sure it's accurate, so.
18,000 years.
20,000.
Zero, so okay.
Yeah, it's good forever.
All right, so all those for the approval of the summary report with the edit pointed out? All right, thank you. Now we have the consider approval of Little Elm ISD contract summary report.
This also has two special ed contracts with Courtney Clover, and one is ProCare Therapy. And ProCare Therapy will provide supplemental staffing on an as-need basis. ProCare Therapy will provide LEISD supplemental staffing for our special population department, including but not limited to licensed specialists in school psychology, assessment, diagnostician, and speech language pathologist. The contract is not to exceed $85,000 in services. And the second one is Sunbelt Staffing. Sunbelt Staffing will provide supplemental staffing as well on an as-need basis, and will provide LASD supplemental staffing for our special population department, including but not limited to LSSP, assessment, diagnostician, and speech language pathologist. And this contract is not to exceed $85,000 in services. And I believe these contracts are in lieu of the ability to hire some of the positions that are open. And the administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD contract summary report as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve the summary report as submitted?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
De Leon. Question.
De Leon for a second. Any questions?
Yeah, Grant, I have a question, because sounds like we're going with two companies for the same services according to this. So what do we anticipate our cost? Is this just kind of like almost a primary versus a secondary, just to make sure we have the capabilities to get staff and we're getting both companies? Is that kind of what I'm understanding from that? And I guess the bigger question is, what do we actually expect our cost to be within this versus the 85,000 we're budgeting right now?
Sure, great question. So thank you for Grant asked me to pop up here real quick. So good evening, everyone. So for our contracted services, we currently have 3 open LSSP positions. So licensed specialist in school psychology. There is a national and state shortage for these particular specialists who work in schools. Their graduate programs are very long. They're like 69 graduate hours. I don't know why they don't get their doctorates, but at that point, because they're in school for a very long time, which is part of the reason why the turnaround is much slower in getting these people into the workforce. But bottom line is, it's a demand versus supply issue. So the demand is higher than the supply that's available. To answer your question regarding the amount of money and what the plan is for usage. So right now, we currently have these positions budgeted sitting in payroll.
Okay.
But we can't fill them. There is going to be a cost differential typically between contracted services and an employee, usually 1.5 times typically the amount, which is why we went up to the $85,000. Typically, we max out our salary scale for an LSSP. Beginning is 55.3, midpoint 65.6, and top end of our salary scale currently is 75.8. So there will be some differential because of just the overhead cost of having a vendor.
But do we expect to use the full 85 in both of the? And I guess I should also preface this. Another part of the question should be, so you said we have 3 openings.
We do.
Does that mean we're going to have 3 at 85, or we're just saying 85 total to help fill those positions until we can hire somebody?
Until we can hire someone is absolutely our plan. We currently are contracting with another vendor for an LSSP currently. So this would really only be for the 2 positions
That are open.
Correct. So we have 3 officially on the books as open, but one of them we're contracting for currently.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I understand.
And then we are, because of some of the bonuses, the stipends that you guys approved at the last board meeting, Ashley and I are working together on how we can recruit and retain these very hard to fill positions, including sign-on bonuses, retention stipends. We're looking at paying their professional dues for their professional organizations, having them attend their state conferences that they don't always get to go to, creating reasonable flexibility during their time at work. That is one of the draws for why they work for these vendors, is they can set their own time and they can charge us for writing a report at 10 o'clock at night if they want to, because we don't get to tell them always when to be at work.
Gotcha.
That, and then also we'll be attending the virtual job fair for the Texas Association of School Psychologists in the next month. So we really are putting all of our energy into finding and recruiting and retaining these really hard to find positions.
Okay,
So
thank you.
We appreciate your help. Thank you.
Just a follow-up question, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
So are these individuals going to be here permanently? Do we call them as needed? You say there's a staffing shortage all over the nation. So how sure are we that we're going to have somebody on site when we need them?
So, great question. So part of what we're doing with these people that we're contracting with through these vendors is we actually interview people just as if they had applied for a position that was open for us. It just happens to be through these staffing companies. And so when we offer to contract with someone, it is negotiated. You will have this caseload, this number of hours will be worked at this rate. So in essence, they're part of our team. They just aren't the district's employee. So there's that kind of difference there, but we don't have just a revolving door of people showing up or showing up online in a virtual setting where kids don't know these people, because these are typically the most vulnerable kids that we have that need that service from a school psychologist. And relationship is the most important thing that they can have with that person. So I hope that answers your question, that it's not a revolving door.
It's part of the question. I mean, because there's a shortage, I mean, how do they guarantee that we'll have the staffing to find someone?
Whenever we interview, they will send us candidates. When we interview someone and we say, yes, we absolutely need this person, as soon as we contract with them, that person is our person for the remainder of the school year until we say we no longer want to contract with you. And we have, as part of the contract, if we hire someone to become our own employee, then that would be a separation from that person with that company. We're of course going to look at kids' needs first.
Yeah.
So if there's a natural
But
break
we
for
can't
them.
hire someone that from the staffing company?
We can hire, that's a good question. We can hire people from the staffing company at a cost. So there's a release cost that we have to pay, which is typically 10% of their salary to release them to us.
Thank you.
Mrs. Clover, will you address what you're doing? Because it is a shortage. We know that. So what are we doing in terms of recruiting? Is there a not a retention stipend, but a signing bonus? We
There
kind of
is.
talk through
Yes.
that.
already mentioned that.
Yeah. So we are doing sign-on bonus, and COVID hasn't helped with us being able to go and recruit at universities, but we are connecting with all of their virtual platforms in order to work with Texas Women's University. They have a program. Texas State has a program. So we're trying to connect with the universities, even if it means us providing and paying for someone to supervise interns that will eventually become our employee once they're finished with all their licensure. So we're trying to be really creative with getting some high quality people in.
And ideally, it would be nice to be able to kind of grow from within. And that is one of the other things you're looking at doing as well, is
Yes.
working with universities and getting our own employees certified. And
Definitely. It's a tough graduate program. So it doesn't help us with our pool, but we are absolutely partnering with as many potential places that we can recruit from.
Well, also, I mean, I've seen some headhunter fees that are 40 to 50%. So, I mean, even
So 10% is not too shabby.
No, not at all.
It's not too shabby,
No.
but it's still a cost.
It is absolutely a cost, and it's not something that you can, budgeting for that for every single position that you have open that is a shortage is a real, that's a hardship for us for sure.
Do we have like a contract where if we hire them for so long?
They,
Or,
so when we contract as contracted service, we pay hourly with X number of hours per week through the end of the year. If we want to have them released for employment, that's where that 10% fee comes into play. The longer we have a relationship with that company, with that provider, the less amount of money we have to pay for them to be released.
Yeah.
So it's like they're vetted over time.
That's what I was wondering. So if we end up having somebody because we can't fill the position, we have them the full school year and go again next year.
Correct.
How long would it be till?
They could be released,
Yeah.
typically 24 months or 2 full school years before
Wow.
they can be released with no penalty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the lowest we pay is $55 an hour and the highest is 75, depending on the amount of experience they have or if bilingual. I mean, there's so many variances to that. So that kind of gives you an idea of just the range. Do you have any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Montemayor has to do something.
Yeah.
Yes?
So all those
No?
in favor of approving the summary report?
Well, I didn't want to walk off if it was a Brand needs to say his part, so.
Yeah. Dylan?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
I thought Grant
Um,
had to
does
say
anybody-
we recommend part.
Does anybody have anything from consent agenda that they'd like to pull out? Okay, so all those or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided?
So moved.
Leanne, is there a second?
Second.
Jason? All right, all those in favor? All right, thank you very much. So in terms of board comments, I just wanted to, thank everybody, the district, all the work that's been put in place to help get our kids in the classroom or online or just kind of get the school year going. I posted when the kids went back to school, it was, the longest spring break ever. It's just nuts that the kids left school in March and didn't return back till just weeks ago. But also just, the staff across the board, our custodial staff, our operational staff, I kept going through these nightmare scenarios in my head where we'd have these huge amounts of COVID outbreaks and everything, and it just hasn't materialized. It pops up here and there, but frankly, I think we've been dealing with it really well. I've heard of other districts that have shut down completely with less numbers, so I know our community isn't as fearful. Our staff are doing a great job. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that and help keeping our kids' interests at the forefront. I think things that get lost also is kids' mental health and all this. I've heard of several teen suicides through this, and I know of one. I guess I'm 2 degrees removed. I didn't know the kid, but I know someone that's very close to the kid, and his note was very heartbreaking and saying that it was, this isolation that contributes to it. So there's so many layers and factors that go into having our kids in school, but I think their health and well-being and their mental stability should be pretty high on that list too. So I want to thank everybody for that. Other board members?
First, I want to thank staff for, this year. I know it's been a tough year, and really appreciate all the hard work and effort. Thanks for the IT department and this and HR for the processes. I know I had a chance to speak with many of you about, how do we handle this contact tracing issue, talking to Mr. Gallagher about that and how do we handle this process. So I want to thank the staff greatly for really taking the time to, one, communicate the process, deliver the process, and then communicate that out to the community as well. I've even pitched this to other boards and other members saying, hey, if you have an opportunity or you guys are struggling with it, take a look at what we've done because it's really a good effort. So really appreciate the effort there. One of the other things I did want to talk about and hopefully get a discussion. Right now, we have a huge discussion in community around, social justice, social equity, and all these other things that we have going on. And one of the things I want to talk about, if we get into that is our historical courses that we have. Right now, I think most of our historical courses go to about 1870 and then stop to about there. And maybe looking at how we're pushing our courses back a little bit more in history and time, maybe to the 1820s or so. And then really for our kids to really understand a couple of things I think are really important. The importance of our country as far as it's coming around to this point right now. The importance of capitalism and certain principles that we value, as well as some of the historical context of some of the things that I think in society now have been taken completely out of context. They don't represent what we see now as America. And so really want to talk about how do we go around and ensure our students have the proper information from a history context, from a true understanding of what it is and some of the other things that we go on, particularly about some of the things in our Civil Rights Acts that we have, some of the New Deal activities, some of the other things that are historically important to our country. So that our students don't go out there and don't truly understand the reality of what really happened. So they have context. So some of the discussion that we should probably take on at a later time. So,
Leanna?
and other than that, that's it.
Over here. I kind of want to reiterate, I've heard a lot of positive feedback from what's going on, people understanding, some of the difficulties that we are having in the district. But I've had tons of feedback about the staff, about teachers in particular. I got an earful about one particular teacher. I've told Mr. Gallagher, but I'm going to go ahead and give him a shout out. Mr. Horvath got one of his parents' families talked about his going above and beyond. He was not the only one I heard about, but I got an earful from a parent who couldn't be more excited about the effort and what he did to help her daughter with a particular math project that she was having difficulty with. But the stories are endless on some of the teachers and things that they're doing, and with them being overworked and the online and the in-school and all of that, and to still hear a lot of this from our teachers. We've got a great staff, and you guys have been doing fantastic. So I had to pass that on and tell you guys it's a lot of good feedback. And that's all I have. So thank you.
Yeah, I just also want to recognize the teachers, just a phenomenal job that they're doing. They do so much work out there and we don't often recognize them. But the other group of individuals that we don't often recognize is our counselors, right? They do a lot of work with those master schedules. It's a lot of work, and here we are about to turn it all over again, right? And have to do it all over again. So a special thanks to those counselors for the many hours that they put in making sure that this is done. So thank you to them.
Well, thanks, staff. Again, Dr. Mick, in your department, I think we all were tried to make sure that we said something during your presentation. But again, to reiterate what Mr. Gallagher said and everything else is, I know daily on, Mr. English has probably heard it from a lot of the folks that he speaks to around the state also, it is pretty miraculous the ease that we've moved into this new venture, this new way of life compared to a lot of other districts that we've heard about. Again, I want to say thank you to all staff, all administration for really being very proactive and getting on the ball on basically trying to come up with any possibility that we could possibly foresee. Again, much bigger districts that I know of that were very, very late and very slow in getting on the ball and getting these things taken care of. So I just again want to say thank you very, very much, staff, for making this go as smoothly as it has appeared to go so far.
Yeah, on top of that, just because I've seen some articles too, thank you to Clay in the IT department, because that's another thing that I've not, and of course, shout outs to the rest of the staff. Everyone's doing a tremendous job, but Clay and staff, I haven't really heard zero as far as some of our other districts around us that are having technology challenges and opportunities. I have heard really a zero for the most part of ours comparatively. So thank you to the IT staff and everyone working hard on that. Thanks for all your work, and staff as usual.
Yeah, board members, first of all, I just want to say thank you for all those comments, because everything that you're hearing from community members, I'm hearing the same thing. And, really what you just said, Mr. Olson, about Clay, that's a good example of the work that we've been doing in the district, but how everyone's coming together, because each one of these departments, they're all working together. No one is working in silos during all of this. And, a lot of work has gone on behind the scenes ever since March 13th. And I applaud the board in the guidance that y'all provided, as far as we were all on the same page that we do need to get back to school. And, your point about just the mental health of our students, the mental health of our staff, we all want to get back to some sense of normalcy. And we are blessed. I mean, today, I don't want anyone to have COVID, but, we're down to 8 active cases in the district, and a district of, 8,000 students. And of course, 40% of our students are at home. Those are really good numbers. And I attribute that to everyone in our community, in our schools, taking the precautions. We're all doing a good job of wearing our masks and using social distancing, but we've all come together as a community, and this has not been one person or one group, and when I say community, I'm talking our entire community, school district community, has really come together to rally around all of us. So I appreciate the board, appreciate the community, and of course, our teachers and those working closest with our kids do need, they need the support, and anything we can do to help ease their job and make their job easier. And that's what I mentioned today in cabinet. Our job here in this office is to make their job easier. And we're doing the best job we can. And again, just appreciate everyone's support. And staff, thank you again for staying late. Although we're not that late tonight. Although, are the Stars still playing?
Yes, we're going into intermission, second intermission.
What do we know score? Just for those that are watching on. Oh, we're winning 3-1?
No, we're losing.
Okay.
3-1.
Well, it's superintendent comments.
Board comments.
All right. Thank you all very much.
All right.
All right, I have one more comment. Go Stars. There you go.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Leanne, is there a second? DeLeon. Are all those in favor? All right, meeting's adjourned
I
at
didn't even get a chance.
9:01 PM.
Oh, double check.
So we're down 3-1?
Down 3-1, man.